They're not quite the same thing, but you cannot separate them out. You can't be yourself if you don't know yourself, right? It's impossible. How can you be yourself if you don't even know who you are, right? Okay. You also can't love yourself if you don't know yourself, right? Okay. But once you know yourself, you know love, because the self is love and wisdom. So when you know yourself, you actually do love yourself. If you're enjoying the video and you want to go deeper with me, check out my meditation masterclass. It's unlike anything. It's pinned in the comments below. And when you know yourself, it's actually impossible not to be yourself, to be or not to be. We could dissect that in some other talk. I'll tell you what that really means. So it's a great way. I love the way that you're looking at it, but they are all interconnected. They're all part of one another. And you actually can't have one without the other. If you truly do know yourself, you know that you are love and wisdom. You'll know that. And when you actually do know yourself, it becomes impossible not to be yourself. But being yourself and knowing yourself requires self-control and self-discipline, right? And this goes back to change your mind. Meet the real you, maintain the real you, and express the real you. It's your exact same question. And now if you end up rereading the book or listening to the Audible with that in mind, it'll completely flavor and fill in completely that question that you just had, the difference between knowing thyself, being thyself, and loving thyself. And we'll see the interconnectedness of them and how each one, I would say, even creates the other, which therefore means you can't have one without the other. You can't love thyself without knowing thyself, because thyself is love. And once you know yourself, you cannot not be yourself. They're all interconnected, but they're not the exact same thing. That's a great question, Sean.
And you're one of my favorite authors just because I like understanding simple term or complex situations, questions, ideas, and I like understanding them as if someone can explain it to me like a 5-year-old. And you're my favorite author in terms of explaining those types of concepts because you use analogies. I'm a huge analogy person. And I wonder if there's like a good or a new analogy that I can conjure from that, from knowing thyself, being thyself, and loving thyself. That'll be something interesting to explore on that one. Just want to put that out there into the universe. Speaking of analogies, I love all of them that you use. What are some of your favorites that you like explaining to people?
It seems one of them that's very helpful is the idea of the octopus and the tentacle. So because, as we talked about before, Sean, the disconnection from who and what we really are and where we come from is complete. And it's complete so we get the most out of the experience. It's designed to be that way. So I don't want anyone to think, well, what's wrong with me? I'm not connected to my higher self. There's nothing wrong with you. That's actually the part of the plan through incarnation into lower fruits, to be so cut off that you have to go within to awaken yourself to then reconnect to who and what you really are. And when you do that on the deepest levels, that is what enlightenment is. It's exactly what it is. Okay. So I think one of my favorite analogies, because it opens the door to more of the truth, to more of what we are in a very simple way, right? Is this idea of I know it's my fist, but the idea that this is an octopus, and for the octopus to experience, what the water is like a bit below, it drops a tentacle to see, oh, let me see, what is it down? What's the water like right over here? Okay. Now, the octopus is our higher self, the oversoul, the Godhead. I call it our totality. It's all the same thing. Those all mean the exact same thing. Okay. So if we start to realize that we are part of this much larger being, and we are simply a projection, an aspect, a soul of this much larger being, and for this much larger being to see what things are like down here, the lower frequencies of the physical universe, where you and I are right now physically, is this projection of the tentacle, dropping the tentacle down, and to realize that we are part of a much larger being. And in fact, it's my direct experience, we're 2.5% of this much larger being. We are a temporary individualization an incarnation of a much larger being. And when the incarnation is over, the octopus, and there's a lot to this, but the octopus then brings the tentacle back up, and now we're back in our oneness, our wholeness, our completeness, access to everything simultaneously, no more beliefs, no more concepts, right? Those are seen for what they are, delusion, right? So if we can start to see ourselves, because this will also help us with the idea of connecting to our higher self, we are, the tentacle is still part of the octopus. It's not severed. We're not disconnected. We're not, but we now have to work on the reconnection. And that's the inner work. That's the inner work. And true inner work will eventually lead to this reconnection with what you really are. And when you reconnect, the octopus, when you reconnect with what you really are, that's what enlightenment is. That's what self-realization is. It's full communion with your higher self. And from my perspective, just to add to that, an authentic self-realized or enlightened being, they are wildly different. Okay, there's a lot of things or proclamations about today about people that say they're enlightened, or not from my perspective. An authentically enlightened being would have access to all of this information, boundless amounts of information that the finite mind will never be able to access. And the wisdom, the love, and the power of an authentically self-realized, because now they have full use of that octopus. They got full use of it, even though they're still the tentacle, they have full use of the octopus. So when we start to work with ourselves and understand that as an analogy, you can actually just go up in frequency, almost like you're traveling up your own tentacle. And I teach a meditation in regards to this. You're going up your Hara line. Just like when you're projected through the Hara line. And when you quote unquote die, you go back. That's why everyone sees the white light. They go right back up that tube. That's exactly. So if we can work on this recommunion with our higher self, we will realize that we are the octopus while simultaneously being the tentacle. So that's one of, there's tons of them, right? But that's one of my favorite analogies that I think is helpful for people to understand that they are part of something much larger. And when we connect with that, that actually is what self-realization or enlightenment is.
Yeah, that's a beautiful analogy. Thank you for sharing that one. And actually diving just a little bit deeper in that one, but asking a different question. So you got the octopus, we are all one, right? But it splits into different tentacles. There's countless tentacles. I mean, if you look at the human being perspective, there's an 8 billion now, 8 billion different tentacles from that analogy. Do we, each human being, have one overarching, overlapping purpose in life? Or do we, each individual tentacle, have a unique one that's subject to that specific person?
Another great question. Okay. Let's go back to what you said, Sean. Know thyself. Okay. There's one directive of existence. Know thyself. But I'm going to add to that. Know thyself and all thy infinite potential, because creation is endless. So all existence is operating with that one single mandate. Know thyself and all thy infinite potential. Okay. Now, we'll go back to our octopus, right? All right. There are billions of octopus. Billions. Now, without me going too far in this direction, we have to, well, we don't have to. It helps to understand that not all higher selves are going to project tentacles into a physical incarnation. Now, when we're here, and I clearly I understand why, because of the disconnection, we kind of think this is it, right? And then we start to think, well, this is how everything operates. Everything operates through incarnation, and that's how it, not at all. Not at all. Only about, from my experience, only about 12% of the totality of existence ever incarnates. Ever. Okay. So there's all of these higher selves that are evolving themselves, all these other octopus that are evolving themselves, not through incarnation all the way down here into the physical universe. It's one way out of an infinite number of ways that we can know thyself. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, if you are desirous of more of the real you and less of your conditioned, agitated mind, if you know that you can create a life that you're not leading right now, but you know you can, check out my meditation masterclass. It's pinned in the comments below.